Hey y'all, it's Starzy and today we are doing a book haul. So today we are going to go through all of the books that I have acquired over the past 6 months, which is definitely more for me than usual, though perhaps less than is the norm on Booktube. Ginger Stabs, is now really the time to clean yourself? Yeah, it's been a very busy 6 months, which is why you haven't really seen me here on YouTube, but if you do want to know more about what I've been up to, there are some videos on TikTok, or, you know, come hang out with me on Twitch sometime. But yeah, there are a decent enough amount of books, so let's get right on into it in no particular order. I'm just going to be picking out books as we go. We'll see how we go. So first up here, I have The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. This is the sequel to The Atlas 6, which I absolutely loved. I say it's pretentious hot people in an academic setting with some fantasy elements. This is a sequel. I have read this. I didn't enjoy it as much as the original, but yeah, The Atlas 6 is one of my favorite things I've read this year, although I understand why people don't love it. And I think I bought this from either Kmart or Big W. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher is one of the worst books, however, that I've read this year. I only read it because it was a book club book. I am now not only a member but a moderator of Melbourne Bookish Book Club, which is a book club we started earlier this year that has exploded. Our Facebook group now has over 1,000 members, and on average we have at least 50 people coming to every monthly event, with more and more people wanting to come. Like, there's more people who want to come than we actually have space for at our events, because every event we go and do an activity. So this month in July we are actually doing trivia. Last month we did bowling, etc, etc. So yeah, let me know if anyone is interested in that, if you live in Melbourne, obviously, because that's a thing that I'm part of. But yeah, that's why I bought this book, but I did not like this book. It is a romance. It is a billionaire romance, so that's a very hard sell for me, but it's in like a Disneyland-esque setting, etc. And I think that was an Amazon purchase. This book was actually a gift, so The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I also joined this year a Discord server called Book Booze. I found through TikTok and through that book talk community, etc. And so as part of that, they do like a monthly book fairy exchange. So this is something I received through that. This is a fantasy novel. I think it's Sapphic and Dragons. I don't know if I know a lot more outside of that, but I'm excited to get into it. I also actually met Samantha Shannon earlier this year and got my copy of The Bone Season signed, which I have read, so. I have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This was a birthday gift, again from someone in that Book Booze Discord server. I have not read this one. I read Riley Sager's like first few thrillers and I haven't read any since, and I think this one, like, obviously like involves like a spooky house and like someone returning to their house with like stories that their father had told her or something from memory. But yeah, I haven't read this one yet either. I have the first 4 volumes of Witch Hat Atelier. When Nathan and I were away in January, I bought Witch Hat Atelier on a whim. There was lots of manga at a bookstore we went to, so I thought I should pick one up. I'd never heard of this one before, but it looked real pretty. Picked it up. I love the art style. I loved it. And so I've continued to pick them up throughout the year. I've only read the first 2 volumes so far, but I definitely need to continue it because what I've read so far, like, I've absolutely loved. This is a manga that follows a girl who has like always wanted to be a witch, and then something kind of bad happens that actually kind of sets her on that path to being an apprentice. And so yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and it's like my favorite art style I've seen in a manga as well. I've been picking up those manga like every now and then when I'm in a bookstore over the months. The Prison Healer, I made a Booktopia earlier this year with a few different books, but the main reason I made it was for this. This is like a special edition copy of The Prison Healer, which is a YA book that I have read before and really enjoyed. We have this main character who is the prison healer. There's a whole bunch of reasons she's ended up in prison and, you know, bad stuff's happening. An element this also has that I really enjoyed is like trials and magical trials. Very kind of typical YA fantasy in a lot of ways, but I loved it. And the reason I particularly wanted this is because I did manage to get it signed, because Lynette Noni was at Supernova this year, which was the same place I got my book signed by Samantha Shannon as well. So signed book. I have Seven Ancient Wonders by Matthew Riley. When Nathan and I went to a market this year, I picked up like a mystery book, a blind date with a book. You know, it was wrapped with like a few things written on it. And this is the book I ended up with. The synopsis when I read it makes it sound kind of like Indiana Jones-ish, where they're like searching for a relic or something. I haven't read this one yet either, but this is a thing I have. I've never read from this author before, but it seems to be pretty popular. I also have Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I bought this the same time as I bought the Atlas Paradox. And this is the sequel to Ninth House, which I'm actually going to be reading Ninth House. I'm going to be rereading Ninth House this month because it is the Melbourne Bookish Book Club's pick for July. So I will be rereading that. And I have not read the sequel yet, so it'll be good though, because then Ninth House will be fresh in my mind, because I did really enjoy Ninth House when I read it, which, you know, dark academia. I was expecting fantasy, but it's actually really dark and has elements to the extent that I would almost call Ninth House a horror, to be honest. But yeah, so looking forward to rereading that and then being able to hop into Hellbent with that fresh in my mind. I have An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which I went to like a bookish meetup earlier in the year, and as part of that we did a book swap. It was like a oh, what's it called? I can't remember. There's lots of different names for it, but it's that whole thing where it's the kind of thing people do at like Christmas time, where you have gifts, but you're able to like steal other people's gifts kind of situation. So this is not the first book I picked up. This is probably like the third book I picked up because my books kept getting stolen. I do really like Hank Green in terms of like his social media presence, and I also was always a fan of like Crash Course and things like that. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'm realizing how few of these I feel like I've actually read since I've got them, but that's fine. I also have One of Us Is Lying, which was another book swap. So, you know, we take along a book that we no longer want and get a book that someone else no longer wants. This one also has edges. This is a YA thriller, I think. I also have not read this one. There are a lot of books here that I didn't actually purchase myself that were gifts or I got in swaps, so that's a win, I guess. I feel like I need to set aside some like goals for reading my physical TBR, because this is getting out of hand, because I do like primarily read. I'll try to do like a full stats video for my first half of the year. Majority of my reading is like the library, Scribd and Kindle Unlimited, so I'm not reading these, but I need to. I also have Early Settlers, Household Law, which is something I got at Sovereign Hill. So Nathan and I went to Sovereign Hill at the start of the year when we went to Ballarat, which, if you don't know, is a place in Victoria that is set up to look like an old mining town, when they from like the gold mines of Ballarat and the gold rush and things like that. So this is a book that is, you know, has a bunch of like recipes and the types of things that they would have been using and doing at that time, in that time period. So also two books that I bought together. I think this was a separate Booktopia order. I got Unmasking Autism by Dr. Devon Price, which I've actually read this before and I've started rereading, as you can see there's tabs. I actually read an ARC of this before it came out. I had an ARC through NetGalley and I loved it. It's like the best book related to autism that I've ever read. So if you are curious, whether you're curious and want to understand other people better, or whether you are like questioning yourself or wanting to know, you know, how to let yourself unmask and things like that, definitely recommend this book. But then I also got Different Not Less by Chloe Hayden, who has a big TikTok presence and now has also been on shows like, what is that, Heartbreak High, is that what the show's called? And she wrote a book which, you know, is about autism and in particular like her experiences growing up and things like that. So yeah, I have also read this one. You can see this shelf's nice and empty because this shelf is generally my books to haul, the books I've purchased. But because I ran out of space on here, there are still some more to go. I have this here, which is a special edition that came in this box. It came in a Fable Co. box, which is what this is, the Twilight box, which is like an Australian subscription box that just comes with a special edition book, and the Twilight one particularly has a fantasy book in it. So I have this special edition book. It's so pretty. And it's of the Isles of the Gods? I find it so hard to read the text that's actually on here. The Isle of the Gods by Amy Kaufman. It's real It's real pretty. I generally do not buy books like that often. As I said, most of my reading is like library or digital, but I kept seeing all these people with all these pretty special edition books, and I was like, I want at least a few of them though, I'd like at least a few to put on my shelves. So I now have this pretty book. I can't reach the rest of my books, hold on. This was another birthday present from someone in Book Booze. So grateful for the way I've been accepted there and everything. And they also got me some annotating supplies, which was amazing, thank you so much. But this is Language of Thorns, which is a bunch of I think fairy tales within the Grishaverse. I haven't read this yet, but I'm currently reading some other books related to the Grishaverse, which you'll be seeing more about soon. And this book is just real pretty. It's just real pretty, so I'm glad to have such a pretty book. I have The Witch and the Vampire that I bought because it is our Slaughter Squad book club pick. It was for the last 2 months, because we're doing bi-monthly book clubbing, so that's Ali, Vanessa and I just reading together, just the three of us. The concept for this was really interesting, where you've got a witch and a vampire kind of rivals YA fantasy thing going on. However, this book was just disappointing. It was not particularly well written. I didn't like how the plot unraveled and things like that. Wasn't a fan, and I'm disappointed because it was a cool concept and the cover's real pretty. I also purchased for myself the Six of Crows duology. So I have the collector's edition of Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and you'll be seeing why I purchased these very soon, because they were for a very particular reason. I had not read these before. I've just finished Six of Crows and I'm currently reading Crooked Kingdom. And as I said, you'll see more about that soon, but books in the Grishaverse, YA fantasy, interesting cast of characters with a heist going on, all morally grey characters. I love Nina, and yeah, I'm definitely happy to have these because I freaking loved Six of Crows, and that's all I'll say. This weekend just passed, I actually celebrated my birthday belatedly, so I did receive a few books from people for my birthday on the weekend. Again, so appreciative. But I received Furyborn by Claire Legrand, which is a YA fantasy. I really enjoyed Soulkill Girls by this author. I don't know if I know much more about this beyond that, but this is something I had on my wish list, so they got it, so happy to have this. And then I also was given the first volume of Lore of Olympus. I have not read this before either, but I've always been interested in it because I love graphic novels, I love Greek mythology, I was a Class 6 major, and I love retellings and all of that kind of stuff. Also, this colour scheme is very much me. Yeah, so I'm keen to have this as well. The funniest birthday gift, only funny because this is the most hyped book of the year. I have not seen any other book be reach this level of hype and obsession on the internet in a very long time, but my friend who bought it for me did not know anything about that. So that's why it's funny to me, because they said, oh, I went into a bookstore and the bookseller there was like, oh, this is actually a book that's really hard to get a hold of at the moment, but it's really popular, people really like it. And so he ended up getting me Fourth Wing. I was interested in this book, so lucky there, but I just find that so funny because this has such scary amount of hype around it, and he had no idea, and this is still the book he ended up walking out with for me, so that's funny to me. But yeah, I now have Fourth Wing, so I just received it. I haven't read it yet. I was a little bit apprehensive to read it, I'll be honest, because of the level of hype, and also because of a lot of the types of books that BookTok particularly hypes up, has me a little wary. I mean, the fine print, which I really didn't like, was a romance that I think has made the rounds on BookTok before. So I was a little bit wary, but I know that Ali recently read this and she's been raving about it as well, so we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. I do now have Fourth Wing. The last book I received for my birthday was a cookbook. I haven't had a good look at this yet to see what it's in it. It's a baking cookbook. The one thing I did see was pumpkin shaped rolls when I had a very quick glance, and that in itself excites me. I love pumpkin, and I love pumpkins aesthetically, but pumpkin is also one of my favorite foods. So I'm excited about this nonetheless, even if nobody else cares about cookbooks. It's hours later and it's getting kind of dark, but I realized I forgot 2 books that were with that Prison Healer order. There are 2 other books I have already read. They're more favorites. The River Has Teeth. I wanted to fit my own copy of this because I read it via audiobook. And I wanted a copy of it because this is one of my favorite books I read last year or the year before last. Whenever this came out. But this is a YA horror with like angry sapphic witches, and it's an exploration of grief, and it's great. And I also got this edition, which is the 21st anniversary edition of Del Toro Quest. This was my favorite series from my childhood. I do already own like these are my original copies of Del Toro Quest actually up here, but I would like the idea of having it all in like one volume, so I did get this as well. So this is my favorite series from my childhood, which is like a fantasy series, which is pretty dark for a childhood series, but I think that's it for individual books, I think, hopefully. But I do also have my first Fairyloot box. As I said, I kept seeing these special editions, and I did try a few book boxes like years ago now. They didn't have special edition books in them, but they did have all the bookish goodies and things like that, because there were a bunch that were actually in Australia, but it seems like none of those exist anymore, which is really sad, because the shipping was just as much as the box itself. Like, it's pretty expensive to get these things down in Australia. But yeah, all of the Australian ones that I've tried previously don't seem to exist anymore, and I wanted a box of bookish goodies. I needed that serotonin. Lastly, let's have a look at what's in here. I have already opened it, but we can look at it together and then look at the pretty special edition book. So this is the YA box that has the YA fantasy and all of the bookish goodies. And the theme was From the Depths. So it had this like watery theme. And I will say that like all of the items in here, I have not read any of the related books, but that's fine. The first thing in here is a tea strainer. And I'm a big tea drinker. If you have any tea recommendations, let me know, because I'm always on the hunt for good tea. But yeah, this is a really pretty tea strainer, so I'll definitely get use out of that. Though I'm starting to lose my sunlight, so we're just getting like the weird reflection of the ring light, but that's fine. Watch me glow. Yeah, we definitely have some practical items in this, because we also have like makeup remover things, like these little reusable things for removing makeup, and they're really soft. There's also in here a plate. So this is The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi. So this is inspired by something I've never read, as I said, but as much as they're like meant to be specifically inspired by something, they're all like pretty generic looking items, I would say. Like they're all just really pretty kind of sea themed things. So we also have a cushion case. Again, this is from something, like I don't know these characters or anything, but this is really pretty. I love like pastel like pinks and blues are some of my favorite colors. So despite not knowing who these characters are, these are really pretty, and I will definitely have to look into getting a cushion for this, because I do actually really like it. Fairyloot also always has like 2 tarot cards in every box, I think. So this month is the 10 of Stars and the 9 of Stars. And I think this is Song of Achilles, which I own but have not read, but you can definitely tell they're like Grecian at the very least. We have what I think might be like a letter from the author. We have the Fairy Scoop. We have a bunch of bookmarks, these ones being like gods, and then this one. Then lastly, we of course have the book itself, which isn't a book that I've ever heard of before. Obviously it must have something to do with the sea. I think from what I read, it might be like a siren or something, but it's Sing Me to Sleep, and this is what it looks like. And then we have like art inside. So yeah, so this is the last book I have to show off, the one that came in the June Fairyloot. Yeah, let me know if you know of any subscription boxes that are better for, you know, us in Australia, any recommendations, anything like that, because whew, the cost, man, the cost. Those are all the books that I have acquired in the past 6 months. It's possible I've missed something, but otherwise probably the books I've acquired in the past 6 months. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you think of them. Let me know what's like your favorite purchase you've made this year, or just let me know anything that's been happening recently, because I know that YouTube is a platform that I tend to abandon the most often when I run out of time, because I've been so busy and YouTube takes the longest of like all the platforms, unfortunately. But here's something for you, here's some content, but that's it for today. TTFN, Starzy out.